approval of the May 13th, 2021 meeting minutes from the meeting that was conducted through phone conference and broadcast on the Industrial Commission YouTube channel. Review and discussion of 2022 Industrial Commission 5-year rule review. Roll call vote on proposed no change rules and proposed amendments to such rules. Review and discussion of revisions to Memo C3. Roll call vote to adopt proposed revisions to Memo C3. Discussion of utilizing the video function for WebEx hearings, and discussion of adoption of video for meeting minutes. During this meeting, it is important that prior to speaking, each participant introduce themselves by stating their name and their title. This is to ensure that the audio recording accurately reflects the proceedings and that the public is properly informed. I now ask our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and affirm your presence. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, here.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, here.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, here. This is Chairman Jim Hughes. Let the record show that a quorum is present. And now the floor is going to be open to discuss the approval of the meeting minutes from our May 13th, 2021 special meeting. Is there any discussion on the minutes of the May 13th, 2021 special minutes? Hearing no further discussion, I move to approve the audio of the May 13th, 2021 special meetings as the approved minutes. Do I have a second to that motion?
This is Commissioner Gilmore. I second.
This is Jim Hughes, Commissioner. It has now been properly moved and seconded for the motion. I will now call upon Mr. Tim Adams, our Executive Director, to call the roll.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
This is Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. The motion having necessary votes, the motion carries, the minutes will be approved. And now we'll move to our order of the adoption of the 2022 5-year reviews. At this point in time, because I do notice we have some people that are in our audience, I want to make sure, as a point of order, we have 4121-309, as well as 4125-1-01. We have received additional feedback, even as of yesterday with a letter. And what we'd like to do is to be fair to our stakeholders, give them adequate time for feedback. We're going to ask, I think it'd be proper if we would move to table those two. We're still within the time period to have those filed with JCAR, but in order to give our stakeholders ample time to come and make sure everything is what they want, I would ask that we would table those two rules to another meeting, so therefore they can have their input and digest it. I'll call upon Amanda Brown, our legal. By the way, just for the record, our chief counsel unfortunately is sick today of all days. So Amanda Brown, who is the assistant legal counsel up there, is going to be helping us today. Is there anything that I've stated that is not proper? Do you have anything you'd like to add in terms of why we need to have these two tabled, as far as the feedback you have heard since you've been working with Mr. Burkhart?
Thank you, Chairman.
This is Amanda Brown, correct?
Yes, this is Amanda Brown, assistant legal counsel. Thank you. Yes, we did recently receive feedback. We also recently received, for the joint rule, the Bureau's changes, proposed changes as well. We are very early in the process. We have until February 1st to do an initial filing in regard to the rules, and there is additional time actually after that if it's needed. But this gives a great opportunity, I believe, for the commissioners to be able to be together and discuss any changes they might have to those rules or suggestions, but we certainly have ample time to table these and reconsider them later.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Do any of the commissioners have any questions of Ms. Brown in terms of what she is recommending we do?
This is Commissioner Karen Gilmore. I have two questions. First one is, which two are we tabling, please?
We are Commissioner Gilmore, this is Amanda Brown, Assistant Legal Counsel.
I'm sorry.
This is Amanda Brown, Assistant Legal Counsel. The two rules that are being proposed for tabling would be 4121-3-09, and which is conduct of hearings, and then 4125-1-01, which is wage loss compensation.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Do you have a follow-up?
One more.
Sure.
Please. This is Commissioner Karen Gilmore. I'm assuming these will be brought up at a subsequent meeting of the commission, and it would be really helpful to get any feedback that anyone has gotten here at the commission, whether it's written, whether it's a phone call or a comment in person, so that we have some understanding of what different groups are thinking and what issues they see that we may not have seen. So if we could have the information either verbal or and or written.
Thank you, Commissioner Gilmore. This is Amanda Brown, Assistant Legal Counsel. Yes, we just sent out the most recent proposed changes that we have received to that moment. And those reflect those proposed edits, additions, suggestions, but we would be glad to continue to forward those as we receive them.
This is Commissioner Gilmore. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Yes, I am receipt of the one you sent out as of late yesterday, 4/22. Yesterday, some of those changes. So we do appreciate Ms. Brown and the legal counsel getting that information to us as you receive it. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Massey, do you have any questions?
This is Commissioner Massey. I do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to move that we table 4121-3-09 as well as 4125-101. I move for that. Is there a second?
I'll second. With Commissioner Massey, I will second.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you. It has been properly moved and now seconded. I now go to our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, ask him to call the roll on the motion to table 4121-309 as well as table 4125-101, which has properly been moved and seconded. Mr. Adams.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. The motion having the proper number of votes, it is hereby accepted. Those rules will be tabled. We'll now move to other rules that we have up for discussion, which my understanding is Rule 4121-3-10, 4121-3-15, and 4121-3-32. At this point in time, I'd like to call upon Mr. Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication, for him and or Ms. Brown to explain what they recommend with those three rules with JCAR. Either one may, whoever wants to go first, or
Sure.
both, whatever the case might be.
The first rule that we are proposing for no changes, Rule 4121-3-10, addresses lump sum payments for attorney's fees for securing an award. We've reviewed the language in that rule as well as House Bill 75 and House Bill 81 to confirm that there are no impacted changes in regard to that legislation. Seeing none, we would respectfully propose that those would be a no change rule. There is also Rule 4121-3-15, addressing percentage of permanent partial disability. Again, the same review occurred and seeing no conflict with the legislation, we propose no change on that rule. Finally, we have Rule 4121-3-32, temporary disability. Again, a review was done in regard to any conflict with the current legislation. We did not see any within the code section. So at that time, and we have not received any feedback in regard to any of our stakeholders in regard to these rules that have been submitted. So without any additional feedback and without seeing any conflict in legislation, we did propose these rules as no change rules.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Brown,
Thank you,
for your
Chairman.
information. I'll now ask my colleagues to see if they have any questions when we present. Are there any questions of Ms. Brown about what we're doing?
This is Commissioner Gilmore, no questions.
Commissioner Massey, no questions, Mr. Chair.
This is Chairman Jim Hughes. I don't have any questions either. I will then move, since there's no further discussion, to have Rule 4121-3-10, 4121-3-15, and 4121-3-32 be filed with JCAR as no change. May I have a second, please?
This is Commissioner Gilmore, a second.
Thank you. This is Jim Hughes. Thank you, Commissioner Gilmore. It's been properly moved and seconded. I'll now go to our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, ask him to call the roll. Mr. Adams, please, sir.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. This is Chairman Jim Hughes. Having the necessary votes, the motion does carry. The next matter up for discussion is our joint Ohio Administrative Code Rule 4125-1-02. This is our final rule for discussion today. These are proposed revisions to Joint Rule 4125-1-02, which deals with electronic submission and acceptance of documents. I understand this is also a joint rule of the Commission, the BWC, as part of the 2022 5-year review. I'll also call once again upon either Ms. Brown or Mr. Connor for any feedback regarding 4125-102 for the Commission if they've explained it.
Thank you, Chairman. This is Amanda Brown, Assistant Legal Counsel. 4125-1-02 is indeed a joint rule with the Bureau. There is only a very small amendment contained within that rule that was a request of the bureaus in regard to the term mailed, in anticipation of perhaps a future situation where receipt of documents could be considered mailed electronically. So that word was added at the Bureau's request. We didn't see any conflict with our current rules. And so we have proposed adding that additional term as well.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Brown, for that. I'll now ask my colleagues to see if they have any questions of this. Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, do you have any questions?
This is Commissioner Gilmore, no questions, thank you.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. I'll go then to Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Massey, I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
This is Jim Hughes. Thank you, Commissioner. I now hearing no further discussion, I move to adopt the recommended revisions to Joint Rule 4125-1-02. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Gilmore, a second.
This is Jim Hughes. It's been properly moved and seconded. The Joint Administrative Rule 4125-1-02. It's been properly moved and seconded. Now I call upon our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. The motion having the proper number of votes, it is adopted. We will now go to the approval of the Memo C3 revision. This is review and discussion of revisions to the OIC Memo C3. At this point in time, I would like to call upon our Director of Adjudication, Mr. Tom Connor, for discussion of this for the Commissioner, please. Mr. Connor.
Good morning. This is Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. The draft before you is as a result of the recent change in the law, changing the statute of limitations for occupational disease claims from 2 years to 1 year, kind of following suit to what had been done, I believe, a year earlier for injury claims. It's really only the main point is to reflect that change applying to claims after the effective date of the legislation, which was September 28, 2021. You will note in the bottom of the second paragraph, what we did at the same time, since we're going to be into this policy, is there's a provision in 412385 that talks about extending the period after a date of diagnosis. That had never been in the policy before, but it had been in the statute all along. So that way the policy speaks to interpreting the data disability as well as the statute, and it'd be the one policy statement dealing with this issue. I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Connor, for your analysis. Because I have one question real quick. Isn't there also the issue of the case of White versus Mayfield with disability? Isn't that also involved in this too?
Right, and that case has been out there for, I'm sorry, Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication, right. That case has been out there for a period of time, and that was originally what this policy only kind of dealt with, is interpreting what White had said about the data disability. We, like I said, or I tried to convey, we actually dropped in this additional provision that had been in the statute all along, so that way that hearing officers and the outside parties can look to one policy to get guidance on how to interpret 412385 in light of White versus Mayfield's interpretation of the data disability.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Connor. I'll now ask my colleagues to see if they have any questions either based on my question or anything Mr. Connor presented to us.
This is Commissioner Gilmore. I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. The previous composition of the Industrial Commission was the majority in White v. Mayfield, majority of the commission decided that the three prongs of White v. Mayfield must all be present, whereas I read it as the law is written that it's or. So while I have no problem with the changes because you're merely subscribing to what House Bill 75 says today, but I would like to suggest that a discussion of White v. Mayfield on the three prongs and whether the word or means or whether it means and. I'd like to have that at a future time on our agenda. And I would also, before that, hope that the Rules Advisory Committee could weigh in on that. I'd like their opinion. And also, I'd like the Rules Advisory Committee opinion on wage loss before it comes back before us. I think that would be helpful.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Connor, do you want to comment in terms of the or, the and issue that, as well as the three prongs that Commissioner Gilmore raised?
This is Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. Actually, that is an issue that has been discussed quite a bit over the years since White came out. I certainly, if that's the commission wants to discuss that, we can certainly prepare some of the Court of Appeals cases that dealt with some of those issues. And if there's a desire, we'll process the tabled rules anyway that the commissioners would desire as far as working with the Rules Advisory Group and the stakeholders.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Connor. Mr. Massey, do you have any questions?
This is Commissioner Massey. No, I don't, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Having no further discussion, I move to adopt the changes as proposed to Memo C3. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Gilmore. I second.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Gilmore. I will now call upon Mr. Tim Adams, our Executive Director, to call the roll.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, yes.
Commissioner Jim Hughes.
Commissioner Jim Hughes, yes. The motion having a proper number of votes is adopted. Next on our agenda is discussion of utilizing the video function for WebEx functions. When we first adopted the WebEx protocol, we limited to the use of audio function only. And with this chair, as well as others, have shared with me, they received feedback from both parties on both sides that it might be advantage for us to include the use of video function of WebEx when conducting hearing. I will also call upon Mr. Tom Connor. I know he's had some discussion with some of these parties to discuss this matter too.
This is Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. Just as a reminder, or to refresh the memory, when we first started with the WebEx hearings, the real concern we had at the time was that the telephone format that we were using was not as stable as the commissioners would like. We were getting a lot of complaints about drop calls during the middle of hearing and that type of thing. So we'd worked with our IT folks, identifying WebEx as a far more robust, efficient way of doing this, with the chances of drop call Well, using WebEx, you don't get drop calls, and it would limit the number of people using telephone, which would also help with those folks not getting dropped out of hearings and make the hearing process work more efficiently. And it did have that effect. It was, I think, by and large, everything we were hearing was that was a big improvement. At the time, I think there was, the hearing officers were conducting hearings at home. And so I think there was a concern or kind of working with that of putting the video. Number one, the video wasn't what the telephone hearings were providing, so that would have been a kind of a change. And it was also some concern raised about seeing the insides of folks' homes and that type of thing. There was no limitation on what the parties could do. If they were participating via WebEx, they could turn on their camera and do in some cases if they so choose. The idea was the hearing officer was not going to enable the video portion at the time. We have now received some commentary, and the hearing officers are back conducting hearings in the hearing room, that there are times when it is felt, and this isn't universal, it's just getting some comments, that there are times when it's felt that the video, having that access and being able to see the parties who are talking and the hearing officer, would be of value. Now, one of the things, and the thing that there's two things on the agenda, it also talks about commission meetings. One of the things that we have to do, even if the commissioners are inclined to explore this further, it would take some equipment changes in the hearing so that somebody appearing remotely could see the hearing officer, but also see if there was a party in the hearing room participating in the hearing. So it's going to take some work. The idea here is this something you would like to task us to start having discussion about and determining how it would be best to do this? There was not an inclination to turn on the video cameras, some months ago. If there is now, then we have some work to do to try to make that happen.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Connor, for that discussion. I'll call upon my colleagues and see if they have any questions of you. I'll first go to Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore and see if she has any questions of Mr. Connor.
This is Commissioner Gilmore. I'm going to make myself really unpopular, but I think maybe a robust discussion of video function, not only for hearings, but also for our committee meetings, might be beneficial, so that we're examining all sides of the issue under our current operating situation, which means it may be revised in the future, but I think it would be beneficial. And I'd be interested in what our different segments of our constituencies think.
Mr. Chairman, Jim Hughes. Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore, for an input. I'll go next to Commissioner Dan Massey, see if he has any questions of Mr. Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Commissioner Massey. I do not have any questions.
This is Chairman Jim Hughes. At this point in time, what is the will of the commission regarding this?
I would make the motion that the Industrial Commission administrative staff look into the feasibility and the actual viability of the video function of WebEx, so that further discussion with the three commissioners can take place.
Mr. Chairman, Jim Hughes has been moved. Is there a second to that motion?
This is Commissioner Massey. I'll second the motion.
Mr. Chairman, Jim Hughes, and properly moved and seconded to make sure I state this correctly, Commissioner Gilmore, to have further discussion and to take the next step to look to possibly do this with our pursuant to Memo C3 of the revisions. With this, I will now call upon Mr. Tim Adams, our Executive Director, to call the roll.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. It next has the necessary votes for approval. That motion is now approved. Our next item for the agenda is to allow for utilization of the video function for WebEx hearings. As we know, The final agenda is release of video recordings to be used in our meeting minutes. This proposal will require our communication department to video record all of our meetings or we engage court recording service to video record the meeting. This will be in conjunction with the audio broadcast through YouTube channel. Adopting this available technology ensures that the public is properly informed of our meetings in a timely manner, as well as transparency. I'll now call upon Mr. Tom Connor, see if he has additional thoughts in terms of what I already stated.
This is Tom Connor, Director of Adjudication. I think that essentially is the issue. This is a little different than the hearings. It's for purpose of commission meetings. There's already been a move to using the audio recording as the minutes. But one of the things when it's audio only, we all have to do the introduction of ourselves as we walk around for those people. And with the idea of turning on cameras for purposes, which is available through the YouTube, that can be broadcast that way. Some of that would go away. However, as earlier stated, we'd have to work with our IT folks to determine how best to set up equipment so that when there's an interaction in the meeting, the outside folks can see who's talking and then get. So there is, again, even if there's a desire to move in this direction, it's not flipping a switch and next Monday we're ready to go, but it allows us to start looking in earnest to what would need to be done to make that work well.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Connor, for that. I'll now ask my colleagues to see if they have any questions of what is being discussed. I'll first go to Commissioner Dr. Karen Gilmore and see if she has any questions.
This is Commissioner Gilmore. I think the trend in public service and government certainly has been to go to video, such as the legislature's committees are being broadcast now. In fact, this week, the National Conference of State Legislatures is meeting in Tampa, and the Ohio Public Radio, Public TV State House Division has sent its employees to Tampa to record the speeches of the Ohio legislators at this national meeting. So it probably behooves us again to look at the video recording of our meetings. That would be my suggestion.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Gilmore, for input. I'll now call upon my other colleague, Commissioner Dan Massey, see if he has any questions of Mr. Connor or has any comments.
This is Commissioner Massey. I do not, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
This is Jim Hughes. Hearing no further discussion, I move to have video recording meetings of the Ohio Industrial Commission and allow these video recordings to be adopted as our meeting minutes. However, this motion is limited only to commission meetings and does not extend to the commission hearings or adjudications. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Massey. I will second.
This is Jim Hughes, Chairman. Has been properly moved and seconded the motion. I'll now call upon our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Commissioner Jim Hughes, yes. The motion having a set number of votes for approval is now approved. Looking at our agenda, we have dispatched all the items that were on our agenda. At this point in time, for our special meeting, I move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Massey. I will second.
This is Chairman Jim Hughes. It's been properly moved and seconded to adjourn. I'll call upon our Executive Director, Mr. Tim Adams, to call the roll, please.
This is Tim Adams, Executive Director of the Ohio Industrial Commission. As I call your name, please restate your name and state your vote. Commissioner Karen Gilmore.
Commissioner Karen Gilmore, yes.
Commissioner Dan Massey.
Commissioner Dan Massey, yes.
Chairman Jim Hughes.
Chairman Jim Hughes, yes. We are adjourned.